have endured in their lifetime. In other instances, we see serial killers manipulated into carrying out bloody work, whether this be psychologically or environmentally charged. Some serial killers kill because it satisfies a hunger inside of them, whether this be a mental stimulant or perhaps even a sexual one. There's also cases of serial killers being psychopaths, and that they are not affected by the emotional consequences of their actions and are apathetic to the pain that their victims sustain. This leads me to talk about an unorthodox serial killer, one who isn't traditionally remembered as a serial killer per se, despite very much fitting the profile. The exact number of her kill count is not known, though her exploits indicate that many slaves had indeed died by her hands, most likely in an ominous-sounding room that sat at the top of a two-story mansion. Reports have it that they were found mutilated, butchered, and even experimented on. Like many women of New Orleans history, Madame La Laurie was a prominent woman who frequented the social scene that was riddled with gossip, rumors, the spilling of political secrets, and endless drama. She was known as a distinguished figure, one who was central to exclusive cocktail parties, private balls, and extravagant galas. Prior to the ghostly crimes that she would go on to commit, La Laurie was described as being courteous, charming, and intensely beautiful. She was born on March 19th in 1787 with the name Marie Delphine McCarthy to two well-established members of the New Orleans Creole community. Her childhood does not seem to have been significantly documented, but given the status of her parents, we can only assume that she lived quite a comfortable, well-content life. She only begins to really appear in records after her first marriage in the year 1800 to Don Ramon, a high-ranking Spanish royal officer, whom she would travel to Spain with in 1804. Given the dates of her marriage, it would appear that La Laurie was only 13 years old of the day of her wedding. The marriage wouldn't work out though, and by June 1808, Delphine would marry to a prominent banker, merchant, and lawyer named Jean Blanc. Blanc went as far as to purchase a house at 409 Royal Street. The young slave girl up to the roof. So afraid of being beaten, the young girl was said to try and escape her punishment by leaping from the roof. La Laurie was also cited by Martineau that there was a 12-year-old girl named Leah who was one day brushing La Laurie's hair, only to hit a snag. La Laurie was said to be so infuriated that she grabbed a whip and chased La Laurie's success. Or was there perhaps a more insidious truth to the tale? There appears to be an infamous account, one also cited by Martineau, that there was a 12-year-old girl named Leah who was one day brushing La Laurie's hair, only to hit a snag. La Laurie was said to be so infuriated that she grabbed a whip and chased the young slave girl up to the roof. So afraid of being beaten, the young girl was said to try and escape her punishment by leaping from the roof of the Royal Street mansion. Whether or not she had actually leapt to escape her punishment, or because she'd been pushed, or because she'd simply lost her footing, is unknown. But it is a tragedy nonetheless that one woman's anger led a small girl to her demise. The body of Leah was said to be buried on the mansion grounds, but one rumor has it that La Laurie took the girl's body and simply dumped it in a well. The incident wouldn't go unnoticed though. La Laurie would be investigated under the allegation that she was illegally enforcing grievous harm upon her slaves. It would force La Laurie to forfeit 9 of her slaves as a fine for the misconduct, although, most regrettably, these slaves were actually brought back by a relative of La Laurie and then put straight back to work in the household. La Laurie wouldn't learn her lesson though, and instead of reflecting on how she could better treat the slaves, she chained the cook to the kitchen stove. It was said that in one instance, her daughters recognized her wrongdoings and tried to free the slaves, but were severely beaten thereafter for their efforts. It wasn't until a fire broke out on April 10th in 1834 did we begin to see just what La Laurie was hiding. The fire would ruin most of the mansion, and everyone was forced to be evacuated. When the fire marshals got there, however, they found the cook, a 70-year-old woman, who was still tied to the stove by her ankle. She was able to survive the fire, miraculously, and would go on to say that she was the one who had started the fire in the first place, in an attempt to kill herself, because she feared being punished at the hands of La Laurie. It was understood that slaves were taken to the uppermost level of the mansion, and were then never seen again. It's been noted that bystanders on the day of the fire tried to help out, and would try to enter the slave quarters to rescue them. However, La Laurie refused to grant them the keys in order to access the room. Therefore, bystanders were forced to burst down the doors themselves, but what they found would have had them beckoned slowly away. It was a sight none of them could prepare for. 7 slaves, or so they say, who were more or less horribly mutilated, suspended by the neck, limbs stretched and torn, some of which had the palpable stench of death. Amongst those found were slave women wearing iron collars, and an elderly woman who had received a large untreated gash to her head that may have contributed to her inability to walk. A newspaper at the time, known as the New Orleans Bee, stated that all of the victims were found naked, and that those who were not found strapped to tables were instead chained to the walls. It goes on to say that some had their stomachs sliced open, and that their intestines would have been wrapped around their waists. One woman in particular was said to have her mouth wielded open, where feces had been stuffed inside. Her lips were then sewn shut. One man, who was hung in shackles, was said to have a wooden spoon protruding from his head, which had been placed in a hole that had been drilled into his skull. Some say that the use of the spoon was to stir his brains. Other accounts suggest that the slaves had their bones broken numerous times and set in unnatural positions, so that they healed incorrectly. One woman was said to have her bones and limbs rearranged.
Alright, Shalom, giving all praise unto Yabashim Al-Shai, Bashim Mukor HaKodash, double honors unto the apostles of Great Millstone. and honestly, brothers, I'll be pushing this truth in sincerity throughout the four corners of the whole earth. And the brother Ibadi are coming out here to give you an in transit style video where we look at this video excerpt and we're gonna assess it through the spirit and through prophecies and through a spiritual mind's eye. And I guess the first point to mention is Karen ain't innocent in the grand scheme of the atrocities of the Negroes, Hispanics, Native Americans. Although you got this so-called feminist movement and they're supposed to be this class of people that's just been oppressed, and really they was living it up. And whenever I hear an Edomite woman speak about how downtrodden she is, you know, it makes me cringe, man. It makes me cringe. Because it makes me think about that Bill Burr joke, which I believe that guy Bill Burr, the comedian, I think he's a Jake. He kind of came up around Jake, you know, Dave Chappelle and all of them people. But he had a very famous joke that he done recently where he speaks about the Edomite woman complaining when they're the most overprivileged demographic within the history of man. Okay, this is the most overprivileged demographic of people within the history of man, and all of a sudden they got a gripe with society and a gripe with the so-called Edomite man, which, okay, right, that's between you and your devil husband. But a gripe that they try to stretch it out for, they try to stretch it out all over society to walk around the earth that they're just this downtrodden, okay, down bad demographic within society, when they've been they've been the initiator of a lot of hurt. Like you've just seen within this small short video, they've been the initiator of a lot of hurt for Jake, man. Okay, especially you Negro men, you Jake men out there, right? No, Benjamin loves to, you know, grab up on some Edomite woman. Okay, some big Edomite woman out there within, and I do make some fine daughters, I give him that, some fine Israelite daughters, but Jake seems to have forgot that there's a particular history that we got to go through. Now, you know, every brother's situation is different. You got to assess the situation for your own circumstances, but you got to remember the history too, man. You got to remember the history too, man. These Karens ain't innocent, man. They ain't innocent. Okay, and we've just seen an example of a very horrific atrocity that happened to that particular Jake. And this is the kind of spirit some of these people, they enter into the workplace in, and you're talking to this person like this is a rationally thinking individual. Nah, you're just a whipping boy, and it just so happens you're living through 2024, whereas 100 years ago, if you were seen talking to this Edomite woman, they would have hung you up on a tree, man. Look what they did to Emmett Till, and lo and behold, that was all based off of a lie off of an Edomite woman. Okay, so hey, man, you've seen the video. Okay, you've seen the you've heard the stories that we just went through there. How they used this particular woman, she was tying the intestines. She cut the intestines and wrapped it around the bodies of them Jakes. Okay, she cut the intestines and she was wrapping it around the body of them Jakes, man. That's crazy. She stuck a what do you call it? She stuck a stick right in a particular person's head and stirred out the brains, man. This is a messed up society that we live in, man. Messed up society that we live in. Real messed up, man. Okay, because you got to interact with these people, and you know they know the history of your situation. You know they know the history of the position that they had underneath the British Empire, the position that they had when America was at its height. You know that they know that the position that you're in is off of the back of them, or off the back of you being a slave to them. Okay, you being an indentured slave to them, and really when they're talking about let's make things good again, they're talking about having you down pat, man. Okay, you know, you Jakes out here, you gotta remember that. Okay, the Edomite woman, for the most part, there's some, you know, women out there that they're into Jake or whatever. That's cool. Okay, even King David had some Edomite women. But you gotta assess these situations with a spiritual mind's eye. When you're walking through life, when you're moving through life, you gotta ask your question. You gotta ask yourself, within your mind's eye, within your spirits, you gotta ask yourself, look, what type of person, what type of interaction did I have with this particular individual within the ancient world? This is what you gotta ask yourself at all times, man. This is the situation that you gotta ask yourself at all time. times. The book of Ecclesiastes, it tells us that there's no new thing underneath the sun. So when you're interacting with these people, ask yourself, what was the interaction within the ancient world? How did this go down? Because that's going to be a good predictor of how things are going to go down within the times that we're living in right now. That's going to be a good predictor of how things are going to go down within the times that we're living in right now. A lot of these people that we interact with, they're here for their judgment. A lot of these people that we go bumping shoulder to shoulder, they're here for their judgment. Okay, they might say one little bad thing and then that's it. The Most High is going to make a move on them. And brothers right now, within the times that we're living in right now, we're living in a time where the Most High is making the move on the people that come up against the men of the Lord, whether it be in the workplace, whether it be in the shopping mall, okay, whether it be at the camp. The Most High is making moves against people, man. Yahweh Shema is making moves against people. But as we move and interact, you always got to remember, who was this particular individual within the ancient world? What did they do? Because that could be based upon the spirit and the interaction that you have with a particular person. Like how brothers have come together and you click. Why? Because we've been doing through the spirit and power Yahweh Shema Shai, Barakateh Yahweh Shema Shai, and Barakateh Yahweh Shema Shai for the brotherhood. We've been doing this thing for millennia, man. Right? For lack of a better way of saying it. We've been doing this forever, man. Brothers have found each other over generation to generation, found each other, taught the word, died, came back into the flesh. And now this is the last time we're going to go through this bullshit. And that's it. That's the story of the first fruits. That's the story of the first fruits, man. Right? The story of the first fruits. And we hope to be the hopeful faith fruits of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shema Shai. We was with Yahweh Shai when he made the earth. Okay? So when brothers come together, it's like, man, it's like I feel like I've known you all my life. Because you know each other all your life, but you get around some people and they got that eerie sense of pride around them. It's because of these kind of situations right here that happen within the spiritual realm. That has happened within the spiritual realm. I'm slipping my tongue right now because I'm so worked up within the spirit. That happened within the ancient world. Okay, ancient world within the times past, 100 years ago, 200 years ago. Okay. You better believe Emmett Till is back within the earth, and a similar type of thing might happen. Same way, same thing. With a modern day twist to it. With a modern day twist to it, Emmett Till is on the earth, or he's coming to the earth, and a modern day equivalent happened to that particular situation. You see that? So Karen ain't gonna get off easily, man. Right? These Karens that done hurt onto the Negros, Hispanics, Native Americans, they ain't gonna escape just because they're women. They ain't gonna escape. Okay? All of these nations and their women, the people that have touched the Negros, Hispanics, Native Americans, and again, you know, there's situations. We understand we're gonna have concubines of the other nations, man. We understand we're gonna have concubines of the other nations. I get that. I look forward to that. But there's particular people that we gotta look at the spiritual Google, man. We're gonna go into the archives, the spiritual archives, and see what manner of persons that this was within the ancient world, and we gotta judge them accordingly. Right? Some of them are gonna be fed to dogs. Some of them they're gonna suffer through the same things that they did to us, but double according to the scriptures, man. We look forward to that. I look forward to that, man. Right? Revelations, the 13th chapter and the 9th verse, speaking on Esau and his Edomite, Esau and Esau. He that leadeth into captivity shall go into captivity. He that killeth with the sword must be killed with a sword. Right? Zechariah, was it? Zechariah, or was it 2:8? Right? Zechariah 2:8 speaks about how that he that toucheth you touches the apple of the Heavenly Father's eye. We're the focal point. We're the focal point. We're the main thing. We're the main ingredient out here. And you touch the main ingredient. Okay, you touch the Lord's anointed. So hey, man, it's gonna be grievous for you, man. It's gonna be a hard times for you, man. Right? Esau and Shesau. It's gonna be hard times within the kingdom of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shema Shai. Anyways, I had to ramble, take a slightly longer route to my destination back home after the job, and that I had to take a slightly longer route just to get that video out, because it gets you worked up within the spirit. I should have did this a couple of days ago, but I said I'll do it now on my way back home, from the job, right, and try to get some edification on my journey, right, and get into the spirit of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh Shema Shai, and really, you feel it within the spirit, especially if you go through certain situations with Karen, right, at the job and that. Right, you get through such certain situations. You watch these videos. You get to understanding why they feel the way they feel about Jake. You get to seeing why they feel a certain type of way about Jake, because they got that superiority complex off of the back of the history that they got, man. Right, you gotta remember what these people was doing within 100 years ago. right? We was down bad 100 years ago. 100 years ago, they were still slaves, man. Okay, 100 years ago, there was particular Edomites that still had slaves, man. You gotta remember that. But it's all good. We're gonna have slaves too, man. We're gonna have slaves too, baby. So that must say, praise unto Yabashim outside, Bashim Mokar, double honors unto the apostles of great millstone, and all the brothers that be pushing this truth in sincerity. Shalom.